What do you notice about this photograph? The colors are kind of unrealistic, right? And it breaks a lot of other rules as well. The subject of the photo is hardly there, kind of boring, and although I'll never admit it, out of focus? Plus, there's this big lens flare and the horizon is a bit crooked. But somehow, even though it breaks all of those rules, I still kind of like it. So what's going on here? There's a lot that I wish was different about this shot, and there's a lot that's technically wrong with it. So why does it work? I think that every photographer goes through 3 levels of creative freedom, and at each level, you start to create in a totally different way. So let's start at the beginning. Imagine you've just got your first ever camera. What's the first thing that you do? I mean, these days, probably go get your wetsuit to prepare for some crazy menu diving. But after that, you probably go to youtube.com, type in photography tutorial, and end up watching some beardy weirdo tell you about juxtaposition and color theory. And even though he is quite good looking and you subscribe to his channel, you're still not feeling that confident. But that's okay, because after a few more tutorials, you start to get the hang of it and you start to understand the basic rules. You are at level 1. This is one of the most fun places to be, because when you learn the basics of how to make a picture look nice, you can get so much better in such a short space of time. This is the level where you sort of start to learn recipes, ways that you can instantly make a photo more fun and interesting than it would have been. Putting some out of focus plants in the foreground to kill dead space, for example, that makes a massive difference. Or even just learning to understand backlighting, which can be really counterintuitive at first. These simple recipes that you can learn really quickly will easily make you a better photographer than most people. You can start stacking them up like Jenga blocks, one at a time. Poses, focal length, shutter speed, flash, depth. But the trouble with this Jenga recipe tower, a bit like this analogy, is that eventually it falls apart. See, when you're relying on these recipes, you will take good photos, but they won't be very unique or personal. Your friends will start to appreciate what you do, but they'll say things like, "Wow, you have such a good camera." See, the ironic truth is you have to escape level 1 because it starts to feel less and less creative. You just end up following the steps. You aren't making anything new and you aren't really expressing yourself artistically, which is probably why you were interested in that camera in the first place, right? So once you realize that using other people's presets and copying Pinterest poses isn't quite fulfilling you, you arrive at level 2. Once you've figured out that being stuck inside of the rules box is a problem, you break out of it. And then you feel free. You throw all the rules out the window entirely. You start to shoot quick and dirty. Maybe you experiment with slow shutter speeds or wonky horizons, and nothing that you shoot is deliberate or constructed. And early on, this is really important. Learning to break the rules that you spent so long learning is really difficult, and it requires you to build new creative muscles. All of a sudden, you realize you can express how you feel with photos. You can share your ideas more freely, and it's also one of the time where you upgrade your technical skills really quickly. At level 2, you learn to do so much more with a camera. And it's also really great mentally, because when you're experimenting with all of these different new ways of taking photos, throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, you start to learn what you like and what you don't like. This is the level where you really start to develop your taste as an artist. And once you do that, your work becomes more personal. It's more unique to you because you aren't just following the formula for how to light something or copying poses from an app on your phone. You're just making it up as you go along. When you do this, the results that you end up with will be way more true to you as an individual. Maybe this is the level where you start to learn a little bit more about avant-garde artists, people pushing the boundaries in different ways. Here's an interesting example. Photographer Thomas Ruff did a big project where he actually leaned into JPEG artifacts and that kind of early digital aesthetic. Most photographers try to avoid that sort of thing at all costs, but he made it part of the art. Or you could look at the work of Ryan McGinley and his harsh, sort of surreal approach to photographing people. When you shoot like this, it creates a much more emotional connection with the viewers of the photo. It's way more rewarding than the photo just looking cool. You can start to push the boundaries. You can start to ask the audience tricky questions. Or maybe you start to make photos that are uncomfortable to look at, or photos that are confusing, or photos that are funny. There's loads of inspiration for that sort of thing in the Discord that you should be in, by the way. But level 2, after a while, it becomes a problem as well. You might start to notice that your work is a bit all over the place. There's no thread that links it all together, and sometimes it doesn't even feel like your different work is the same artist. It doesn't have any structure or any glue holding it together. Sometimes you can take great photos, but great projects seem out of reach. And when you start to look through your back catalog of work and you see that there isn't that thread linking it all together, that's when you start to realize you need to go to level 3. But before you go to level 3, you need to build yourself a portfolio website with today's video sponsor, Framer. Aside from being one of the best and easiest ways to make and publish websites, Framer are also always working on new and exciting ways to make your website more fun. A great example of that is shaders. Shaders are a new tool inside of Framer that let you design stunning interactive visual effects like animated gradients, image effects, and particles directly inside of your projects. There's a library of built-in shaders ready for you to drag and drop onto your website right within Framer. Previously, getting effects like this required you to be a lot more nerdy than I am, and having them easily accessible is huge. Shaders are super customizable and easy to use, and especially for photographers, if you're using your website as a portfolio, I think it makes it way more interesting and interactive to get people to do stuff on your website and not just scroll down it. I've been really enjoying experimenting with the different image effects in shaders like fluted glass or chromatic aberration. It can be a really effective but subtle way to communicate to people looking at your website that you've put in that extra bit of effort. You can also apply shaders to things like logos using SVG or PNG files. Plus, they're always adding new shaders, so there's continuously more new exciting stuff to experiment with. I've used shaders on Framer to build zonefocused.com, which is a portfolio of different places that I've been and photographed. And Framer strikes that perfect balance of giving me all of the control I could possibly want, while also letting me do things the easy way. So sign up for Framer using the link in the video description, and while you're at it, make sure you use the code HunterCreates1 for an upgrade on the house. Thank you very much to Framer and to you for your continued support. Level 3. If you open your mind too much, your brain will fall out. The thing about throwing all of the rules out the window and doing crazy experiments is that a lot of the time you don't really know if the experiments are successful or not. And when you don't have any recipes, it can make it difficult to have a body of work that really feels like you. Like a restaurant that has Indian food and Italian food and Japanese food all at the same time. What kind of restaurant is it? And having a cohesive body of work is quite important if you want to be an artist. Maybe it's something as simple as a nice harmonious Instagram grid, or maybe you want to do a zine or a book at some point. What about a gallery show? If your photos are good, but there's just no common thread between them, it's just really confusing to look at. It's kind of like listening to all of the music ever made on shuffle rather than just picking an album and sticking to it. If you listen to albums on shuffle, don't. Your work needs to feel like your work. People don't just like art for the pretty pictures, they like art for the people who made it. You have to be personally involved. The Campbell's soup tin is clever, but what makes it great is the fact that Andy Warhol stuck it in a gallery next to a load of all of his other work, which made it into a much more interesting story. It makes you ask more interesting questions and feel more interesting feelings. But Hunter, you're saying, the way to introduce that glue, that auteur-ness into your work, surely isn't just to revert back to level 1 and all of the basic rules, right? Correct. I think that the way to add that structure back without getting back in the box is to build the box yourself. You develop your own rules, your own artistic visual conventions based on what you want to achieve. Your visual rules should be, first and foremost, reinforcing the story that you're trying to tell, helping the viewer to feel what you want them to feel, understand what you want them to understand, and question what you want them to question. And when I say story, I don't want you to think that I mean you have to do the whole like hero's journey, beginning, middle, end thing, because you don't. It's more like a lot of us start taking and sharing photos because we want to share with other people the way that we see the world, right? So make sure that your rules are helping you do that. Now, the crucial part here is that these rules are fluid.
Shapeless, like water.
The rules, the box that you create for yourself, is always changing. It's like the box of Theseus. Even on a per project basis, the rules can change as long as you still have some overarching umbrella concepts that you pay attention to. Here's one way I've done it recently. I made a short photo documentary recently called Photographing Hell, links, and when I shot the photos for it, the box that I made for myself was that I was only allowed to use the Nikon F3, 35mm lens, a 300mm lens, and I was only allowed to shoot film, and I was shooting in one tiny little area. But you might think that sounds restrictive, but it really wasn't. I experimented with slide film, black and white, cinema film, different times of day, different subject matters, all sorts. It was quite a varied project, but because I tried to keep the visual conventions along kind of the same path, it kept it together and made it feel more like one body of work, kind of like an album. There's a link to the digital zine that turned into below, as well as a free one if you don't want to give me any money. But the real kicker here, and nobody told me this, is that you're allowed to break your own rules. You just have to know why you're breaking them and have a good reason. As an example, maybe you have decided that you're going to take a photo with a crooked horizon. That'll wind the Reddit boomers up, but why is the horizon crooked? What does it help the photo achieve? Gary Winogrand is one great example of this. A lot of his street photography had crooked horizons, and I think for him, it helped to convey the sense of speed and urgency. It makes us, the viewers, think, wow, Gary spotted something and shot a photo as fast as he could before he missed the moment. There must have been something he really responded to here. It helps to communicate to us, the viewers, that all of these moments are fleeting and over really quickly. Now, life, as it happens, imitates art. I've been following this 3-level process my entire life. When I was a little kid, I would do what I was told, follow the rules, and the entire concept of not following the rules wasn't even a possibility in my mind. And then, when I was a teenager, I thought that the concept of rules in general was inhumane and evil, and I broke as many of them as humanly possible. Most of the time, that was not a good idea. And as an adult, I still really hate some rules like speed limits or dress codes, but I really like some other rules. I think that if you talk or use your phone in the cinema, you should be shot.
The special hell.
Those of you with a quite expensive and mostly useless university education might recognize this process as the Hegelian dialectic. But since I don't have that expensive education, I'll leave it at that. The point is, this process applies to basically every skill or creative journey you'll ever go on in your entire life. Playing the cello, writing poetry, dance, cooking, carpentry.
Never had one lesson.
And once you learn to recognize it and be aware of where you are along that journey, it's so much easier to stay on track, to know that you're making progress, and to feel good about where you are. Each level isn't better than the one before it, it's just different, and all of them are so much fun to experience. I love level 1. Getting to get so much better in such a short space of time is really rewarding for me. Level 2 is great because then you start to discover stuff you didn't know existed. And when you do get to level 3, you start to feel like you might actually be quite good at this. If you're interested, here's that documentary that I mentioned earlier, which you can watch next. Stay hydrated and create art.